Cardinals owner Raiderdude,
What's up?
Giants owner Sprint42, and Bengals owner UTBeast.
Yo,
Today we're going to be talking about the playoff picture, and we're going to make some predictions on the projected draft order for the teams that don't make the playoffs. And we'll start in what is a cleaner picture in the NFC. The Giants, who is here, leads the pack in the NFC at 14-0. Played a tough game today with the Cardinals. You boys want to talk about that game today?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Eli. You're the winner.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Giants, you agree with
I'll just
that?
add
Or sorry,
Cardinals.
Cardinals. I mean, my mistake.
Yeah, I'll just add I knew it was a game that would come down to turnovers. He was +1 in the turnover category. He had two, I had one. Very close game. Injuries played a factor, as he already mentioned. Uh, Close game. He secures the number 1 seed with that win. But so now it's going to be a battle for the 2 seed between me and the Falcons, and Vikings could potentially slip into that conversation depending on what he does. But yeah, it was a great battle. It was competitive. Clearly the top two teams in the NFC.
Now, you alluded to a battle now for the 2 seed between yourself and Atlanta. You're currently sitting at 12-3 with the loss to the Giants, and Atlanta is at 11-3, still having to play New Orleans and Carolina. A good chance that Atlanta could beat both teams and end at 13-3. What challenges do you see yourself facing in Seattle?
Austin, I mean, the first time I played him, he had a lot of injured players in general. Michael Bennett was out, and one of his receivers were out. Uh, Usually plays a pretty good game defensively. So I mean, I just have to be on my toes, just not turn the ball over like I have been the past 3 or 4 games in which I've lost. Um, so just with Austin, you can't turn the ball over or hold the ball too long, or he'll sack you. And defensive pressure is a big thing with him, so
Fair
it's one
enough.
of the main challenges.
All right, and as I mentioned earlier, the playoff picture got a lot clearer today as there's no more wild card teams looking for position as Green Bay was eliminated with the Washington victory pushing them to 9-6, and Green Bay also lost to Minnesota, keeping them at 7-8. Also taking a loss today was Carolina at Tampa Bay, who now also sits at 7-8. So is there any chance you guys think that Seattle and Washington could flip flop? Granted, obviously, Arizona doesn't want to hear the chance that he could lose to Seattle, but it's a game of football. Anybody can win and lose. Uh, Giants, you would have played both teams, right? If you played Arizona, I'm assuming that means you played the division, or was that just a was that what would you have any insight on that potential? Because Washington's next game is against you, and you said you're going for 16-0. And having played both teams, what would you say? Fair enough. Fair enough. And Arizona, same question. Yeah, have you played Washington this season? And if so,
Yeah.
could you throw in some insight onto that Week 17 matchup?
I mean, Washington, he takes what you give him, offensively and defensively. Um, I don't see Washington beating the Giants per se in their last game. Um, his game plan is very. I mean, he doesn't blitz a whole lot. It's very quiet coverage.
Hmm.
Um, keeps everything in front, and so on. So, I mean, usually, if you do that to a guy like Sprint or the Giants, they'll pick you apart. So I really don't see the Redskins really winning that game. But see Washington staying at the sixth seed, and the way the playoff picture looks right now, seeding wise in the NFC, I think it will stay the same per se.
Yeah. I would throw my vote into that same hat. I think everybody's seeds stay the same. The only possibility I think of even any flip, and I'm not even sure if it would flip if you guys end up with the same record, would be whether or not Atlanta and Arizona flip spots. Other than that, I don't see um, a flip. And again, I don't even know for a fact that if with the same record they would even flip. So yeah, let's
Comes
move
down
on
to
to
that.
the AFC where the race is a lot less clear. There's about 4 to 5 teams hunting for a wild card. Um, Miami, I think, just locked up a playoff spot with a win today. Now sitting at 10-5. I seen Jeff started his game earlier. It looks like he was on his way to going 10-5 as well. That leaves in the wild. Now this is an interesting one for me. Between the AFC Central with Pittsburgh and Cleveland, there's a 1 win difference between the two. As it is right now, have both of them. The Browns have not played, and the Steelers have won, pushing them to 12-3. So that would mean that Cleveland wins this week, they move to 11-4, and then they play each other next week, probably for the
Oof.
division. So that would make a big difference in terms of seeding there, which is something to keep an eye on for a Week 17 matchup. Is Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. Cincinnati, you're in that division and you're hunting for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
You took a win today over the Lions, and you moved up to 9-6. And Denver losing puts you into the sixth spot today. KC also lost today, which puts you currently into the sixth spot. What would you predict for who wins your division?
I think Bling's gonna keep it with the Steelers. I think he's gonna win out. I think he'll beat Irma next week and take it.
What what do you what's the defensive, like what's the game plan from both of these guys generally speaking? Like what kind of a matchup could we expect from these two next week?
Yeah, I'd say probably another nail biter, probably one that comes down to the wire. Irma's are really good at defense, and Bling too. They're both just all around two of the best users in the league, and to have them in the same division is already insane. I
Yeah,
think I think Bling will pull this one out.
I also had the privilege of playing both of these gentlemen. Very, very good play callers. I haven't seen them as often as a team in their division would, but I saw them both in pretty quick succession when I entered this league. I'm actually one of the 4 on Irma's record. I got so much pressure in on Deshaun Kaiser that he couldn't really get anything going. He ended up pick sixing me for the first score of the game, so
Yeah.
that speaks to how good his defense can be. It
Yeah.
wasn't until like late in the game where I was able to just sit on a lead and protect it. And also, being new at the time, I played a very conservative game plan, having heard all the like talk about how good
The
his
hype.
defense was.
Yeah.
And with Pittsburgh or Bling, um, I felt I played a good game there as well. But his team is so deep that you can't even commit to just covering one person. Like if you
Yeah.
focus on Antonio Brown, well, guess what? Le'Veon Bell's in the backfield, and then okay, focus on the backfield. Then he's got like Antonio Brown, Jesse James, and Bryant. It's basically pick your poison with that guy, and his defense is pretty solid. So that'll definitely be a nail biter. But
Yeah, I think that's
based,
another important factor for next week is that right now the team Steelers are just better than the Browns.
yep, I was just about to
And
get to that.
yeah,
I think the
it's a
biggest
big factor
difference
right now.
in that particular matchup is the fact that the two teams overall is so drastically different that it creates a sort of handicap. But clearly, that
Yeah.
hasn't meant too much on Cleveland's end, as they're currently sitting at 10-4. So we'll see how that
Yeah,
plays out in Week 17.
I went 2-0 against Irma, and then I went 0-2 against Bling. So pretty much just the matchups. This division kills each other.
Yep, yep, yep. And so there's that again. So like I said, Jeff was in a game. I most recently seen it at 14-0 against San Francisco. So okay, that game. Yeah, that's what I figured he was on his way to winning that game. So he's currently sitting at 10-5 as well. KC is at 8-7. Cleveland plays
So
the
third place.
Bears. Cleveland will walk on the Bears. Denver lost, so they're also at 8-7. And since he's at 9-6, Baltimore has to.
I play Baltimore next week.
Where is Baltimore? Baltimore beat the Colts, so they're sitting at 8-7. So you and Baltimore could be playing for the 6th seed,
Yeah.
and KC and Denver, one of the two is gonna finish at 9-7 because they play each other. So your best bet, Cincy, is to just beat Baltimore and win your way into the playoffs.
Yeah.
You
If
don't
I
want to
win,
leave
I'm
it up to
in. If I
chance.
lose, I'm out.
Okay, okay. So that's definitely an interesting. So your game versus Baltimore is one of the ones to keep an eye on for playoff positioning. Same thing with KC Denver, because one of those teams has to win and move to 9-7. The other
Yeah,
will
that
be
whole
8-8.
division is crazy right now.
Yeah,
They could all go into next week 8-7.
yeah,
Shit.
that's crazy. Cleveland is pretty much the only one that's comfortable where they are and could make a significant jump by winning out. So that'll be another. So there's three matchups that are key
Was
on the AFC side of it. Sorry, Raider, what were you gonna throw in?
was Cleveland? Has he clinched?
It's not
What's
that he's
the
clinched. It's that he's at 10-4 currently. Plays
okay?
Chicago and then last week at Pittsburgh. So my assumption is that he'll be 11-4 in the last week, and playing Pittsburgh for a chance at winning the division. Unless I'm not sure what their previous matchup was like. It might come down to points, or like he said,
Okay.
since he said he swept one and that lost to the other twice. So yeah,
All right, I
Pittsburgh
got you.
and Cleveland. Baltimore needs to beat Cincy to have a chance at coming in, and they have to hope that their 9-7 is stronger than whoever wins the KC Denver game. So there's some good drama there as far as the playoff picture goes. Any prediction on who makes it and doesn't, excluding Cincinnati, because Cincinnati clearly wants to bank on himself making it. Yeah, the Chiefs have been looking really
Yeah.
sloppy as of late.
Yeah, no, he has an interesting situation with his internet
Yeah,
and his
I
hotel.
feel for him, man. It's got to be
Yeah.
aggravating, man.
So sorry, man. You
It
don't
is
think you
what it
do, but
is, right? That's how it goes sometimes. Oh, oh, Jeff's
yeah,
clinched.
Jeff
Yeah,
has already clinched it. Jeff and Steelers have clinched their divisions.
yeah. Miami's
Yeah,
clinched
they
their
clinched.
division.
They clinched.
Miami could move into second if if Jeff loses next week. I think Jeff plays against
Jeff.
Jacksonville. Or yeah,
I thought
no, not Jacksonville. Sorry, Tennessee.
I thought Irma was sitting at
Oh.
the 2 seed right now. Oh no, no, never mind, never mind. He's in the
Yeah,
same division.
because
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Steelers.
he's the fifth
Never
seed
mind.
exactly. Yeah, that's why I say like Cleveland has
Yeah,
the most to gain from winning out and
I got you.
beating Pittsburgh in the last week, because then Pittsburgh goes from having the top seed to the fifth seed, which is pretty wild.
Right.
So that's I think that's probably the marquee game for next week. No offense, Sprint. Granted, you're trying to make history over there, but you kind of. um,
16-0 has happened twice, I think, in the NEFL.
well, make it 19-0 and make it something special. All right, so that pretty much summarizes the playoff picture for both sides. Like we got three marquee matchups in the AFC, and then, like we said, the NFC is pretty much how it's gonna stay already. So moving on to the draft, which is funny because this is more my side of things, because I'm actually in the top 10 here. Shout out 0-6, once upon a time. So I put together a list earlier today of the bottom 20, and I wrote out who's left on their schedule and then made a projection on how I expect them to finish. Um, I should start out by saying Tampa Bay, I apologize. I expected you to lose out, and you ended up playing a very strong game against Carolina and do it again against New Orleans, and then you will have doubly proved me wrong. So, in the first five, my projection is that we're going to have San Fran, Tennessee, Indy, Tampa, and Chicago. And so San Fran plays Jeff right now, if the game isn't over already. And then they play St. Louis. Has anybody here played St. Louis? I haven't played St. Louis this year.
Yeah,
I haven't.
yeah, I played him. He's in my
Hey,
division.
you're the division.
Makes
Yeah.
sense, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you would have played both of
yeah. I
them.
mean,
Or wait, have you played
he's
the new San Fran owner?
San Fran. Yeah, I have I. Is
I'm not
this what's
sure
this?
because this is what his third
I
week with
played
us.
yeah, soap, right? Soap.
Schmo.
Was there another guy? Schmo.
Yeah, it's Schmo. It's Schmo 428 now.
I don't know if I played him actually. I played Stu. I think I played. Actually, no, I haven't. Played them together. Oh, have I?
I'm looking.
Oh, but either way, he's gonna get the number one seed, I believe. I mean, the
Yeah,
number
there's
one draft
yeah.
pick. But with regards to the Rams, I mean, he's a good opponent. Obviously, he won a Super Bowl in
Okay.
Madden 17.
Okay.
So I mean, he just doesn't have the dogs on offense. And,
Yeah.
obviously the defense, secondary wise, he has some holes there too. So I mean, he's gonna get better as the cycle goes on. But
Hmm.
right now, he just doesn't have the talent to compete
Makes
with guys
sense.
like me and Austin and so on, and other top tier owners in the NFC. I give
And
him season 3, he'll be in the conversation playoff wise.
yeah, right now I've got St. Louis projected to finish for the 10th or 11th seed, all depending on
Yeah,
how New Orleans season plays out. I have both teams projected to finish 7-9, but currently with the same record, St. Louis is sitting 2 spots ahead of New Orleans. So I figured if the course stayed par, that had having the same record would keep them ahead, but it all depends on how New Orleans season plays out.
New
Uh,
Orleans.
yeah, they have
I thought they were
Atlanta
tanking.
this week and Tampa Bay next week. Atlanta's a loss, most likely, and I thought they could beat
Yeah,
Tampa Bay, but again, Tampa Bay beating Carolina, I
it's a
don't know
toss
what
up.
exactly. I don't know who's
It's a
playing
toss
for
up.
what next week. Um,
I mean,
then
Aries
there's
is a Super
Storts,
Bowl owner. He's won a Super Bowl, so
so he wants
I
to get
mean,
back there for sure.
yeah. I mean, he should be winning more, but uh,
Um, uh, on projection, it looks like Storts will end up with the second overall pick. He
yeah.
plays
Ah,
he plays St. Louis this week, and then plays Jeff next week.
I don't know.
So he'll finish at most likely 3-13.
The game against St. Louis will be a toss-up. I don't think the Colts actually finished second.
The Colts are currently 3-12, and they have Houston next week, so they would also
They're gonna
finish.
lose.
Yeah, they'll finish
They're
three
gonna
and
finish.
13 as well. And with the same record, they're currently behind Tennessee.
Oh yeah, okay.
So there's that. So my projection is that Tennessee finishes ahead of Indy in that on the same record. Um, Tampa Bay actually has to drop back a few spots with winning today in my projection. I had them at fourth with 4-12, but I think now they're gonna have to move possibly to fifth, sixth, or seventh, depending on how their tiebreaker works with Philly and Dallas, because Philly and Dallas are both 5-11 and play each other in the last week, so they'll be playing for who has a higher draft pick. I was about to say, Sprint, that's your
It has
division
been
mates
high.
right there. You wanna throw some insight there? Yep.
You have a lot of injuries too, though.
Fair enough. So the presumption is that Dallas will beat Philly. Okay, then in that case, that puts Dallas at 6-10, and then Philly at 4-12. So Philly stays in the top five, and then it all depends on how their tiebreaker shakes out with Chicago and the Jets, who are primed to finish 4-12 also. Chicago has Cleveland and Minnesota, and the Jets have to face the Chargers and the Patriots. So, two tough games for two weaker rosters.
Hmm.
Not very favorable matchups for them. So,
Nope.
high draft pick. What would you say? Let's see. We'll go with Raiderdude for this one. So with San Fran being the number one pick, what do you think the biggest hole is on that roster, having played them twice this year?
Anything offensively, O-line, wide receiver, quarterback. Offensively, they're.
It looks like there's a few franchise level quarterbacks in the draft. If
I
just
mean,
on
if you have
the
a
on the board without opening anything up, I think the first two out of the first four players are quarterbacks
if the
that they
new guy's
have.
eating decent offensively, he'll be able to work with what's his name, the quarterback from
Beathard.
Iowa, Beathard.
Oh,
I mean, he's
CJ
not a bad
Beathard.
quarterback at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not a bad
Beathard's actually
quarterback at
not
all.
bad. You're right. Beathard's been looking actually really good in for
Wide
what
receiver
he's.
wise, he's has. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, he needs a wide receiver.
Yeah, he could
Garcon
he could
is
definitely
30.
use a wide receiver early on, or just some big playmaker to build around on the offensive side. Because that San Fran's defense isn't that bad.
No, it's not.
It's
Front
like,
seven wise, secondary could use some work. Front seven wise, you could. I mean,
well, they still have
for
Eric
offensively,
Reed, so they're not like completely dead in the secondary, but their corners could probably use some help in the depth. But a big
yeah, big
offensive
time.
playmaker is what I would personally go for. Tennessee, what has Tennessee been injured this year, or what's
It's stores. It's stores.
hilarious. Indy's shuffled owners twice this season, so that kind of explains why they're pretty high in this draft. Um, Anybody here? No, nobody here's from the or NFC South. Tampa Bay, the Carter injuries or just bad luck? What's the look there? Anybody got
Um,
insight?
has anybody else played him? I played him.
I actually played
The
him this
Bucks.
season. We had actually a really weird game. I played him in week 14 or 15. Um, First half, neither one of us could stop each other. I think it was 24-17 at halftime, And then in the second half, neither one of us could solve each other, so it was a pretty strange game as far as that goes. Final score was 31-28, and he put up a touchdown with like a minute 38 left to make it the 3-point game.
Yeah, blew him out too.
Is that
Yeah, I
something
mean,
that you find affects people a lot, transitioning from one Madden to the next?
I'd say so. Oh, go ahead.
Fair
I mean, you
enough.
look at guys like Carter and Dallas, who were playoff contenders every single season. The type of seasons they had. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have to attribute it to something. So I mean, I'm guessing there's a steeper learning curve for some guys. This particular Madden. So
I, as far as like upgrades and like differences, I think one of my favorite things about this Madden is like, say you're running like a corner route or any like anything with just a good cut, and your receiver gets like those 3 steps on the guy and he's burnt, and then the corner doesn't just magically react to the ball. He's playing catch up with the defender and trying to secure the tackle in the AI setting. I find that very like more authentic than the usual. As it should, as it should. All right, let's finish out this top 10. So we got to Tampa Bay, Chicago. We debated. So now here's an interesting one. So after the 5-11, Philly, it would be me and Dallas at 6 and 10 for the 8th and 9th spots in the draft. So I'm not sure how tiebreaker would work there, but currently Dallas is sitting ahead of me with the same record. So I'm gonna go on the assumption that they stay ahead of me with the same record. So Dallas would be the 8th pick in the draft, with me being the 9th, and then St. Louis. There's about 4 projected 7 and 9 finishes, with St. Louis, Houston, and New Orleans. Anyone else? Oh, Green Bay actually now is also probably going to finish 7 and 9, and Carolina could also finish 7 and 9. Losing, actually no, they will. If you guys say that Atlanta would beat them, then Carolina will also finish 7 and 9. So the middle of the draft is going to be a mess. How before we wrap up this segment, one just one question from a new guy to people that have been around. How prevalent are draft day trades, or do most trades happen before the draft?
for the for the most part, I mean, most people don't. I mean, well, if they're gonna be draft picks traded, they usually trade it before the draft. Usually, like Sprint said, if they're not gonna make it, they'll trade them. But for the most part,
Makes sense.
it's a lot of people keep them. Every now and then you'll see a draft day trade, but they're not as prevalent given we have rules.
Okay,
So I
okay.
mean, there's the boundaries to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Usually it's the back end of the draft where you'll see a lot of guys trade next year, second, fourth, current third, or something like that. If they see a
Hmm.
guy that they want or whatever. But
Makes sense.
Most of my picks are already gone. My first pick is in the fourth.
Oof, rough. That is rough. So then, okay, here's a question for you. Then with your first pick coming in the fourth, does that mean that your draft strategy would be to not scout any players above those rounds, or would you look for somebody that might have had a high grade that has a reason to slip down?
Yeah, for my scouting, well, I haven't really scouted as much just because my picks are so low, but I'm aiming more towards like finding guys ranked way down there to hopefully find like someone hidden
A
that
little
can maybe
diamond in
fall
the
to me.
rough. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different strategies to use, and it all depends also. Like some like, it's a real shame if like you're hurting at a position that isn't deep in the draft class. Like right now,
Yeah.
um, what is it? What is it? Left tackle or right tackle? One of the tackle positions is ridiculously deep this year. Just in terms of how many prospects are like first to third round grade compared to like the rest of the positions.
Uh, looks like right tackle's pretty good.
Yeah,
It has like 7 guys in the first 3 rounds.
I don't want to throw my scouting report
They
onto
were
this
too.
broadcast because then all the grades are going to be out for everybody. I ain't trying to help everybody that much,
Yeah,
but
true.
yeah, like I said, I know right tackle has a lot of high quality. Like it's a deep class
Yeah.
of prospects, so everybody should be able to find something to work with. Maybe even stockpile late. But on that
Yeah.
note, top 10 has been rounded out. And then, like we said, the middle is a mess, and we could make projections, but without knowing the tiebreaker, that would just be a big head scratch for no reason. Anybody want to throw in some closing thoughts?
Just that next week should be exciting. Let's see how
Yeah,
it plays out.
definitely got some good games of the week to watch. Arizona, Seattle
Yep.
being one. Giants going undefeated against Washington could be another monumental moment in NEFL history. And playoff picture shaping up.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the AFC West matchups.
Yeah, those will
They'll be
be good.
playing each other, and they could all be 8-7.
Yeah,
It should be fun to watch.
Yeah.
it'll definitely be an interesting week 17 shaping up, and after we have the playoff
Yeah, the
picture,
AFC.
maybe grab another one and hit another one of these episodes with some predictions and projections, and then the draft order will be finalized at that point for at least the people that didn't make the playoffs. So we'll have more to work with from there. On that note, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate you all. Good luck with your games and the rest of your seasons and everything that goes with that. And until next time.